All right, welcome. Today we're going to break down a really powerful framework from Aquavis Advisors for making sense of our, let's face it, incredibly complex world. It's all about getting down to the real building blocks of geostrategic power: technology, energy, and money. So let's just kick things off with the big question that this whole framework is designed to answer. With the global system shifting and feeling more and more chaotic, how do you cut through all that noise and see who is actually building a solid foundation for the future?
The first major pressure point, it's the global stage itself. You know, the era of a single dominant world power is kind of giving way to a multipolar world. We've got new powers rising and challenging the way things have been for a long time.
And at the exact same time, we're seeing what a lot of people like Ray Dalio would call the end of a long-term debt cycle. I mean, governments are historically over-leveraged, and that creates this fundamental, deep imbalance in the whole financial system.
So you mix those things together, and yeah, it really feels like we're moving from a period of relative order into one of rising disorder. But, and this is a key point from the source material, with all that change, with all that disruption, comes incredible opportunity.
Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll set the stage, get a feel for the world we're in. Then, we'll introduce the three pillars of power. After that, we'll break down each one: technology, energy, and money. And finally, we'll get to the really cool part, showing you how they all work together.
First up, let's talk about this world at an inflection point. We've got to quickly look at the key pressures that are literally reshaping our world as we speak.
You know, the source material really boils the moment we're in down to these 5 points. We've already touched on the geopolitics and the debt, but you've got to add in this massive shift in supply chains away from just-in-time to just-in-case. Plus, you've got these huge domestic pressures from aging populations and wealth inequality. It's really a perfect storm of systemic imbalance.
But here's the thing, and this is absolutely crucial. This isn't just chaos for the sake of chaos. If you look at history, periods of crisis and conflict, they force this massive surge in investment and innovation in the most critical areas. Why? Because change stops being a want and becomes a must.
So let's get to the framework itself, which is what helps us find that signal in all this noise. This is all about identifying who will hold real power in the new system that's going to emerge from all this disorder.
According to Aquavis, power isn't what you might think. It's not just about military might, tanks and jets. It's about the adaptable, fundamental building blocks of geostrategic strength. And it's all built on three core pillars. And here they are, simple and clear: technology, energy, and money. That's it. These are the three domains where the real competition for the future is being waged.
All right, let's dig into that first pillar, the technology engine. At its core, this is fundamentally about creating efficiency and, well, saving time.
Now, what I think is really cool here is the definition. Technology isn't just gadgets. It's any innovation that lets us manipulate energy and time more effectively. It's really about doing more with less.
And for our current era, right now, the foundational technology is, of course, artificial intelligence. I mean, just think about the global competition over AI chips and data centers. That's the technology war playing out in real time. The framework sees AI as the base layer for the next decade of innovation, turning raw data into real-world value.
And man, this quote from Ray Dalio just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It is not an exaggeration to say that the race for dominance in technologies like AI, it's a race for global leadership itself.
Okay, moving on to our second pillar, the energy input. This is the raw fuel required to power everything, and I do mean everything, in our modern world. The definition here is deceptively simple, but it's so profound. Without energy, nothing happens. Technology doesn't run, societies don't function. It is the absolute foundation that everything else is built on. Period.
So what does energy power actually look like?
Well, it means independence. It means having access to the cheapest, most abundant resources. And critically, it means having a consistent, reliable baseload power source, like nuclear. This is so vital, especially now, because the demand from those incredibly power-hungry AI data centers and just the general electrification of our world, that demand is set to absolutely explode. You just can't have a technology revolution without the energy to fuel it.
And that brings us to our final pillar, the money store. Now, this framework presents a fascinating view of money, not just as currency, but as a unique technology for storing value. So, think of it like this. Money is basically captured energy.
It represents the time and the labor you've already put in, transformed into a form that you can store and then use later. It's essentially a technology for moving value across time.
Now, this pillar covers both sides of a massive evolution that's happening in money right now. On one side, you have the current centralized system, dominated by things like the US dollar. And on the other, you've got these emerging decentralized systems, like Bitcoin, built on blockchain. The tension between these two models, one controlled by governments, the other by code, is a key battleground for the future of this money pillar.
Okay, now for what might be the most important part. These pillars don't just exist in isolation. They are deeply, deeply interconnected, creating what the source material calls a reinforcing confluence.
And this illustrates that self-reinforcing loop perfectly. It's a flywheel effect. It all starts with abundant, cheap energy. That energy then powers advanced technology, like those massive AI data centers we talked about. And leadership in that technology? Well, it creates immense economic value, which in turn lends tremendous power and legitimacy to that nation's monetary system, which strengthens its global standing. You see, it's a cycle where each pillar just accelerates the others.
So we'll leave you with this. This framework, it isn't just some academic exercise. It's a really practical lens for seeing the world more clearly, for understanding power structures, and even for building investment portfolios. The next time you see a headline about a new energy source, or a tech breakthrough, or a shift in monetary policy, you can ask yourself, how does this affect the pillars of power? It's a simple but really profound way to identify the forces and the opportunities that are shaping our future.